Every day we wake up to news that reminds us of how fragile life truly is. Today, the world lost four remarkable American legends, people who inspired us, entertained us, and shaped our culture in ways we'll never forget. Their stories remind us that greatness isn't about how long we live. It's about the mark we leave behind. It was a quiet morning in Hollywood when the news was confirmed. Ralph Senensky, one of television's most enduring creative forces, had passed away at the age of 102. For those who grew up in the golden years of American TV, his name carried a familiar warmth. He was part of a generation that built stories not with spectacle, but with soul. Born on May 1st, 1923 in Mason City, Iowa, Ralph's journey into storytelling began long before television was even a household presence. He studied theater and directing, drawn to the stage's rhythm of human emotion. In the early years of television, when the medium was still finding its identity, Ralph found his calling, behind the camera, shaping the way America saw itself. By the 1960s, his name was tied to some of the most iconic shows ever broadcast: The Twilight Zone, Star Trek, The Waltons, The Fugitive, The Partridge Family. The list was long, but more importantly, each carried a distinct fingerprint. Senensky's episodes were calm but powerful. He understood that silence, timing, and character could speak louder than any explosion or twist. Colleagues often said he directed like a poet, letting emotion unfold instead of forcing it. In one interview, a fellow director recalled, "Ralph never rushed a scene. He believed every glance had meaning, every pause was part of the story." His work on Star Trek's This Side of Paradise remains one of the series' most beloved episodes, a tale not of battle, but of emotion, peace, and choice. It showed what science fiction could be when handled with human tenderness. Behind the camera, Senensky was calm, observant, and deeply patient. Crew members said he rarely raised his voice. Instead, he guided with gentle conviction. He was known to say, "Television isn't just pictures moving, it's feelings moving through pictures." That philosophy made him not only a director, but a quiet philosopher of storytelling. In The Waltons, his direction turned simple family life into something sacred. He captured the warmth of community, the ache of loss, and the joy of small triumphs. His lens found beauty in the ordinary: a child's smile, a sunset, a door closing at the end of a long day. To audiences, those scenes felt real because Ralph treated every moment as real. When word of his passing spread, tributes came from every corner of Hollywood. Writer-producer Jane Espenson shared on social media, "Ralph Senensky directed stories that made us feel deeply, even when the screen was small. His vision was big." Another filmmaker wrote, "He taught us patience. He taught us that art lives in the quiet moments." In his later years, Senensky remained deeply connected to his work. Even past the age of 90, he wrote about his experiences on his personal blog, reflecting on every production, every actor, and every creative challenge. His words were gentle reminders of a time when television was crafted with heart and care. He often said he felt lucky to have been part of a creative revolution, one that gave meaning to millions of living rooms across America. Ralph lived through a century of change, and from black and white broadcasts to streaming screens. Yet, he never lost faith in storytelling itself. "Technology changes," he once said, "but people don't. We still cry at the same things." That simple truth was his compass through decades of evolving media. Those who worked with him remembered his presence on set: calm, steady, reassuring. He wasn't a man of fame or noise. He believed that the director's greatest success was when the story outshone his own name. That humility became part of his legacy. Ralph Senensky's long life was more than a career. It was a timeline of American television itself. Through his lens, we learned empathy, patience, and connection. Each of his episodes became a mirror to the human spirit. For younger filmmakers, his story remains a lesson in balance: how to hold both vision and kindness in the same hand. As the film world said goodbye, his passing felt like the closing of an era. The generation that built television from scratch, who worked with their hands, their eyes, and their hearts, is slowly fading into memory. But Ralph's work continues to air, to teach, and to comfort. Every rerun of Star Trek or The Waltons carries his quiet fingerprint, reminding us what television once was and what it still can be. A longtime friend and collaborator once said, "Ralph believed in light, not just on the set, but in people." It's a fitting truth for a man who spent his life capturing it. Ralph Senensky's century-long journey leaves behind more than episodes and credits. It leaves behind emotion, the kind that lingers long after the screen goes dark. He showed that storytelling is not about spectacle, but sincerity, and that even in a world that moves too fast, there's still power in taking things slowly. Today, his name joins the pantheon of directors who shaped the heart of American television. He may be gone, but his work continues to breathe life into the stories we tell. In the quiet glow of a television screen, somewhere between the lines of light and shadow, Ralph Senensky's vision still lives, patient, poetic, and timeless. It was a quiet morning in New York when the news broke. Maria Riva, the daughter of legendary actress Marlene Dietrich, had passed away at the age of 100. For a century, she carried not only her mother's legacy but also her own, graceful, thoughtful, and deeply human. Her journey was never about fame alone. It was about truth, art, and the strength to be herself in a world that often wanted her to be someone else. Born Maria Elizabeth Sieber on December 13, 1924, she came into a world already surrounded by lights, cameras, and applause. Her mother, Marlene Dietrich, was one of Hollywood's most celebrated stars. Yet behind the glamour, Maria's childhood was filled with long nights, distant hotel rooms, and the shadow of fame that loomed over her family. Still, even as a child, she was drawn to the stage, not for attention, but for expression. In her early years, Maria's determination set her apart. While many children of stars faded quietly into the background, she studied acting with intensity. By the 1950s, she was one of the most familiar faces on American television. Appearing in live dramas and variety shows on CBS, she earned critical acclaim and was nominated twice for an Emmy. Her performances were honest, grounded, and natural, proof that talent could indeed run in the family. But individuality was something one had to earn. Her work in Studio One and Your Show of Shows showcased her deep understanding of character. She didn't seek to dazzle the audience with glamour. She wanted them to feel. Those who worked with her often said she carried a rare calmness on set, a quiet authority that came not from fame, but from wisdom. In later interviews, Maria would often reflect on the pressures of being Marlene Dietrich's daughter. "It's not easy," she once said softly. "You grow up admired for something you didn't do." But she never turned away from her mother's legacy. Instead, she studied it, understood it, and eventually, she shared it with the world. In 1992, Maria Riva published her powerful memoir, Marlene Dietrich, The Life. It was an intimate portrait of a woman the world thought they already knew. The book was not gossip, it was truth. Maria wrote not as a critic or admirer, but as a daughter who saw both the brilliance and the loneliness behind the legend. Critics praised her honesty and courage. "It's a love letter written with truth," one reviewer wrote. It became one of the most revealing and human biographies in Hollywood literature. Away from the spotlight, Maria's life was filled with art, books, and family. She married Dean Goodman Riva, and together they built a quiet, private life. Friends described her as thoughtful, witty, and fiercely intelligent. She often hosted small gatherings where conversation mattered more than glamour. Even in her later years, she remained sharp, with a storyteller's memory and a philosopher's insight. As news of her passing spread on October 29, 2025, tributes began to pour in from around the world. Film historians, actors, and admirers remembered her as a bridge between eras, a woman who lived through every transformation of modern entertainment, from the golden age of cinema to the digital world. One touching message came from actress Cate Blanchett, who wrote, "Maria Riva showed us what dignity looks like in the shadow of fame. She lived with grace and spoke with honesty." Another tribute read, "She wasn't just Marlene's daughter. She was Maria, a storyteller, an actress, a truth-teller." Her passing marked the end of a remarkable century-long journey. She had seen the rise of film, television, and the internet, and through it all, she stayed true to her values. She believed that art was not about attention, it was about connection. In the final years of her life, Maria rarely appeared in public, preferring the comfort of family and reflection. But her voice remained strong through her writing and recorded interviews. When asked how she wished to be remembered, she simply said, "As someone who told the truth. About myself and about what I saw." There was no drama in her tone, only peace. It reflected a lifetime of understanding, the balance between light and shadow, between love and legacy. Maria Riva's life is more than a story of a famous daughter. It's the story of a woman who learned to stand with quiet strength beside greatness and still create her own meaning. She showed that legacy is not something we inherit. It's something we build day by day with honesty and courage. Her passing leaves behind not only memories of her performances, but also lessons from her life. Lessons about dignity, resilience, and truth. About how to honor the past without being trapped by it. In every photograph and interview, her eyes carried a sense of knowing, a mixture of nostalgia and acceptance. Perhaps that was her greatest gift to the world. A reminder that life is beautiful not because it is perfect, but because it is real. As the lights dim on this chapter of Hollywood's golden lineage, Maria Riva's name will remain, not just as Marlene Dietrich's daughter, but as a woman who lived a century of art, memory, and love. She leaves behind a legacy that continues to inspire artists and dreamers, a reminder that the truest form of fame is integrity. And as time moves forward, her story will continue to whisper through generations, softly reminding us that even in the shadow of legends, one can still shine with their own light. The news came quietly, carried through messages of remembrance and music. Jesse Colin Young, the soft-spoken voice behind one of America's most timeless anthems of peace, had passed away in March 2025. For many, his songs were not just melodies, they were memories. His voice was a companion through decades of hope, protest, and love. Born Perry Miller on November 11, 1941, in Queens, New York, Jesse grew up surrounded by music. His parents were both classical musicians, and from a young age, he was drawn to the guitar's warmth and the honesty of a simple lyric. In the early 1960s, when America was finding its conscience through song, Jesse found his own calling, not to entertain, but to connect. By the mid-1960s, he had formed the Youngbloods, a folk rock band that carried both the energy of youth and the soul of reflection. Their message was simple yet powerful: understanding, peace, and unity. In 1967, the world heard a song that would forever be tied to Jesse's name, Get Together. Its chorus, "Come on, people now, smile on your brother," became a prayer for a generation searching for light in the turbulence of war and division. The song rose slowly, quietly like its message. But when it reached the airwaves, it became an anthem. It played in marches, peace rallies, and living rooms alike. For many, Jesse Colin Young's voice was the sound of a gentler America, one that believed in kindness and harmony. Years later, reflecting on the song's impact, Jesse said, "I didn't know it would last this long. I just wanted people to listen, to really listen to each other." That humility defined him. He never sought fame. He sought connection. As the years passed, Jesse's solo career blossomed. Albums like Song for Julie and Light Shine carried his signature warmth, folk roots blended with country soul and poetic storytelling. His lyrics spoke of family, love, and the beauty of the natural world. Critics often said listening to Jesse Colin Young felt like sitting beside an old friend who understood life's quiet moments. But behind the gentle voice was a man who faced his share of trials. In the 1990s, health challenges and environmental concerns led Jesse to leave the city and start anew. He moved to Hawaii, where he built a life close to nature. There, he found peace among the trees and ocean, living with his wife, Connie, and raising their family away from the chaos of fame. When asked about the move, he said softly, "I needed to heal. I needed to breathe again." And in that silence, he found renewal. Even after illness forced him to step away from music for a time, Jesse's heart remained tied to song. In his 70s, he made a surprising return, releasing Dreamers in 2019, a record that revisited his lifelong message of love and unity. The voice had aged, but the spirit behind it remained as pure as ever. His performances during those years were filled with gratitude. Fans described his concerts as a reunion with the past, wrapped in peace. When news of his passing spread, tributes poured in from across generations. Folk legend Judy Collins wrote, "Jesse's voice carried our hope when the world was falling apart. He gave peace a melody." On social media, one fan posted, "When I hear Get Together, I still believe humanity can heal. Thank you, Jesse." His family released a short statement. He left this world surrounded by love and music. His voice may rest, but his message will forever live. Jesse's music had always been more than just notes on a page. It was a reminder that empathy and kindness were still possible. In times of division, his words felt like a hand reaching through the noise, asking people to remember what truly matters. Friends and fellow musicians remembered him as gentle and kind. A man who spoke little but meant every word. He believed deeply in the power of song to bring people together, and that belief never faded, even in his final years. There was something timeless about Jesse's voice, that clear, steady tone that could calm storms. He didn't sing to impress. He sang to remind us of love, of connection, of peace. Though decades have passed since Get Together first echoed through speakers, its message remains painfully relevant. The same spirit Jesse carried in the 1960s, one of compassion and unity, still calls out in his music today. As we remember him, the silence he leaves behind feels soft, not empty. It's the kind of silence that follows after truth, gentle, honest, and full of meaning. Jesse Colin Young lived 83 years guided by purpose, kindness, and melody. His songs continue to play in the hearts of those who believe the world can still come together. He once said in an interview, "If one song can make someone feel less alone, that's enough for me." And perhaps that was his greatest gift, not fame or fortune, but comfort. Today, his voice joins the wind, eternal, steady, and kind. His message lives in every heart that still believes in peace, and every voice that dares to sing for love. In the quiet after the music, Jesse Colin Young's song still plays, not in concert halls or radio waves, but in the souls of those who listened, believed, and never forgot to smile on their brother. The news came quietly from Ontario. Graham Greene, the beloved Canadian actor whose calm strength and deep humanity touched generations, had passed away at the age of 73. For fans across the world, it was more than the loss of a performer. It was the farewell of a storyteller who carried truth in every word and dignity in every role. Born on June 22, 1952, in Oswego, Ontario, Graham was a proud member of the Oneida Nation. His journey to acting wasn't simple. He worked as a welder, a sound engineer, and even a rock band roadie before ever stepping onto a stage. But when he finally did, it became clear. Storytelling was in his blood. His presence was quiet but commanding. Whether on screen or in a small theater, he didn't just play characters. He lived them. Graham's career reached a turning point in 1990 when he starred as Kicking Bird in Dances with Wolves. The film, directed by Kevin Costner, became a cultural milestone, not just for its sweeping cinematography, but for its portrayal of Indigenous characters with rare authenticity and respect. Graham's performance was subtle and deeply moving. His gentle strength and emotional honesty earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. That role changed everything. It gave him a global audience and a voice that would echo through decades of cinema. But Graham never saw it as a personal victory. In an interview years later, he said softly, "It wasn't just about me. It was about being seen, really seen, as people, not stereotypes." He continued to bring depth to every role that followed. In Thunderheart, he embodied courage and pride. In The Green Mile, he brought compassion to even the darkest corners of human emotion. He appeared in Wind River, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Longmire, and countless television dramas, each time reminding audiences that power doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes it simply speaks with honesty. Those who worked with him often spoke about his grounded nature. Actor Tom Hanks once said, "Graham had this way of saying more with a look than most of us could with an entire script." Kevin Costner, in a tribute post, wrote, "He brought truth wherever he went, on set, off set, and in every life he touched." Behind the camera, Graham was humble and fiercely loyal to his roots. He often returned to Indigenous communities to mentor young actors, reminding them that representation was not just opportunity, it was responsibility. "You carry more than your name," he told a group of students in a 2018 workshop. "You carry stories that deserve to be heard." Despite his fame, Graham remained deeply private. He preferred quiet evenings at home in Ontario, surrounded by family and nature. Friends described him as witty, thoughtful, and unpretentious. A man who still enjoyed fishing, cooking over open fires, and telling jokes that made everyone laugh. He never lost touch with the land or the values he came from. Over the years, he received multiple honors, including a Gemini Award, a Dora Maver Moore Award, and induction into the Order of Canada. But to him, the real honor was seeing Indigenous voices rising in film and television. "We're still here," he once said, "and we're still telling our stories." When news of his passing spread in 2025, tributes poured in from all corners of the industry. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences wrote, "Graham Greene brought truth and grace to every role. His performances bridged cultures and hearts." Actress Tantu Cardinal, a longtime friend and collaborator, shared, "He made space for all of us. He carried our stories with pride and respect." For audiences, the loss felt deeply personal. His face had become familiar, not through celebrity but through sincerity. Whether as a spiritual guide, a grieving father, or a quiet hero, Graham's characters reflected something real: resilience, dignity, and compassion. In his final years, Graham continued to act, though at a slower pace. His later performances carried even greater weight, each one a reminder that the truest power of acting lies in empathy. In one of his last interviews, he was asked what legacy he hoped to leave behind. He smiled and said, "I just hope I made people feel something honest." And he did. His performances weren't about grandeur or fame. They were about connection. Every glance, every pause, every quiet moment of reflection carried the pulse of truth. Today, the screen feels a little emptier without him. Yet, his legacy continues in every young Indigenous artist who found courage in his success. He showed them that storytelling could be both a weapon and a healing tool, a bridge between worlds. Graham Greene's passing is not just the loss of an actor. It is the closing of a chapter in cinematic history, one that taught the world that authenticity can move mountains, and humility can command the screen. He leaves behind a trail of unforgettable performances, but also a deeper lesson: that representation matters, that kindness has power, and that storytelling can unite even the most distant hearts. As the final credits roll on his remarkable life, the images remain: the calm strength in his eyes, the quiet conviction in his voice, and the warmth that seemed to glow from within. In the silence he leaves behind, there is gratitude. Gratitude for the man who reminded us that every culture holds wisdom, and every story deserves light. Graham Greene's voice may now rest, but his spirit continues, in every film, in every story, and in every young dreamer who dares to believe that truth, told with grace, can still change the world.